So what do you do, Sandy?
Well, I sing, of course.
How's your dancing?
Care for a demonstration?
Hi, this is Ben Kay. I'm with Consequence. I'm here with filmmaker Edgar Wright, whose latest is Last Night in Soho. Edgar, thank you so much for the time and for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so Last Night in Soho is kind of your first, non-comedy horror thriller, but it still feels very much like an Edgar Wright film because you're one of those filmmakers who has certain trademarks. In this case, camera work in particular, with the use of mirrors. Throughout the film, there's lots of shots over the shoulder shots. And, I'm thinking in particular of that first moment we meet Sandy as she comes down the stairs. There's this really complicated mirror shot. And I was wondering what were the new challenges you found as you made that kind of the mirrors kind of part of the theme of the film, and how do those mirrors play into the themes of the actual story itself?
Well, I guess a big part of it in the design of those shots was trying to sort of replicate things that happen in dreams. Like I certainly have lots of dreams where I am somebody else. I mean, like I know I'm me, but I look like somebody else. So there's that, or like sometimes, like being able to see myself from an outside perspective, or sometimes like being in somebody else's body. And I guess in a way that the why we designed the shots like that was to sort of, that the longer you can go without a cut and the more that you can do in camera, like physically happening in front of you, it just helps you kind of like suspend disbelief and you're not breaking the spell. As soon as you get into something where kind of, and that goes for a lot of elements in the movie where there's a sort of points in the movie where even like early on in the movie, there's a scene in a taxi cab in the middle of London, and we shot it for real because I knew that like if it's a film where somebody's coming to London and the very first scene that you had suddenly had green screen, I think like you've broken the spell. And it's like, so I was like, you're making it harder for yourself by saying we should really be in a cab in the center of London because it'll just feel more real. So even like with a non-like sort of, supernatural scene, that was a big like part of it. And it's not dissimilar to like the mirror shots. It's like, how can we do this without any cuts? How can we fool the eye? Because like if you're experiencing it like Thomasin McKenzie is experiencing it, where what she sees in front of her is impossible, how do we do that like for real? So we basically did more in camera than maybe some would believe.
That's impressive. But again, kind of in camera, in scene stuff is kind of an Edgar Wright trademark. Diegetic or source music, big parts of your films. And in this case, another like hugely important thing. I'm wondering how much of that like comes from you as you're writing the script going, oh, I know the song that goes here. How much of that comes from research or maybe music supervisors? How do you put this kind of 60s soundtrack together?
I mean, it sort of goes hand in hand with the conception of the story and the writing of the script. In a way, like the soundtrack is like songs that I already like, but also honing in on the particular ones that feel tonally right for the movie. And there's a particular kind of like sort of pop song of the mid 60s that are like these sort of emotional mini operas in a way. And they, like sort of, stained with tears, like these songs by these amazing female singers. So that was something that, like in writing the script, sometimes you write them into the script of like, this is the song to go with this scene. Sometimes you're just listening to the song to get you in the mood or even remind you to make the movie. I'd sort of been conceiving of this movie for 10 years. And so I'd just be quietly kind of like earmarking these songs as things that for me, like went hand in hand with this project. So I basically, once we start production, where the music supervisor comes in, Kirsten Lane, amazing, is that she helps me clear them all before we start shooting. Because you don't want to start like doing a very intricate scene if you do not have the song. That would be a terrible mistake.
Especially when you're trying to rework downtown entirely into this whole new eerie vibe. And you're like, oh, we can't use downtown? We really need downtown.
Well, the funny thing about that is that like I sort of, I knew, maybe I knew that Anya could sing. I didn't know how well she could sing. And when we did the session with her, only a couple of days, maybe even the day before we shot that scene where she sings Downtown. Yeah, I think it was the day before. It was like a Saturday before we started shooting that scene. And we recorded 2 versions of it. One that was similar to the Petula Clark one, and then like a sort of slower version of it, like an a cappella one. And me and Stephen Price, the composer, heard that and we were like, wow, 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 wow. Okay, she's going to make the voice. It's clearly like the slow one. So it was something that kind of like, we knew I'd earmarked the song for that scene during the writing, but then the exact version of it and how she was going to sing it came very close to actually shooting.
The way that song then plays out in that scene and the way that the tone of it reflects the film's themes itself that might have been not your initial choice, but man, it works really beautifully in the context of the film.
I feel like a lot of those songs are sort of like secretly sad songs. That's the key to it.
Yeah, finding it there was genius. Well, Edgar, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Love the movie. And yeah, thanks again for joining us. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.